Greetings, adventurers! This is Effigy Dragon, and you have joined me in episode 8 of Here Be Dragons. In the last episode, I finished off trying to put together a touch crystallization spell from Mana and Artifice, and I did kind of mess it up a little bit by setting it as a self-crystallization spell, which does not work. I did recreate the spell with the proper format, so it is now a touch crystallization, and it now does place creatures into diamonds. I've gone ahead and grabbed a couple of pigs, a couple of sheep, and a couple of chickens around just to test it out and play around with it a little bit. So I do have a number of animals stuck in gems, and I have found out that I cannot do the same thing with the Wandering Trader or his llamas. So we'll have to look to see if there's another way we can grab those villagers from Spawn Town and bring them here once we have accommodation set up for them. But that is not what we're looking to do today. What we're actually looking to do is start working on a greenhouse for some crops. And we'll be able to then set up automation utilizing the Mana and Artifice constructs, but we'll need that building first, and we're going to be doing that out here, just next to our main structure, in approximately this location. What we're going to be using is some Jakarta logs for our support beams and birch for some of the structural members for the roof, and then we're going to be filling it in with white stained glass and a couple glass doors as well. So we are going to be going ahead and doing that right over here. And just so you get an idea of what we're going to be looking at, let's go ahead and see about setting up a couple of the planters that I'm thinking of utilizing. Now these are going to be raised beds, and we're going to go ahead and set them up something like this. And we're going to use the spruce trap doors to hold the raised planters up. We're going to just go ahead and do about 4 blocks of dirt for each area. Each one of these sections will have a different plant, and then we'll have these spruce trap doors later on the outside. Like so. And we will put water in between these plots of land, and we will, of course, then plant our crops. So these are what the land, plots are going to look like, but we're going to, of course, have to build a structure around that just to protect the crops from this cold alpine air that is constantly blowing around us. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I will jump up on the roof. We'll grab a snapshot of it, of the original plot without any construction, and we'll do a bit of a time lapse as I work on it, and we'll switch out the background image as we progress. Okay, and here we've got the completed greenhouse. You can see that there's some crops in there as well. I spent some time after completing it pulling up all the grass and bushes to get some additional plantable crops. And you can see here we got quite a few different varieties planted in our raised garden beds, both Pam's Harvest Craft as well as vanilla. And we'll be replacing these placeholder torches as soon as we get to the nether and start collecting some of the resources necessary for the light sources I do want to use for the interior here. So these are just going to be temporary, but now that we have our greenhouse completed, what I'm thinking of is putting in a barn for our passive mobs that we collected just before the start of this episode. And we're going to be probably putting it right over here, right next to the greenhouse. And what I'm going to have to do is make sure that our barn has a bump out very similar to this one here on the greenhouse, so that our mana and artifice constructs can breed and harvest the passive mobs like we're going to set up here in the greenhouse for the mana and artifice constructs to do. But I think we're going to go ahead and put it over here. I need to get some dirt and flatten this terrain out a little bit, fill in those holes, cover up some of the water there. So I suspect our barn is going to be a pretty big structure, because we're looking at least at our cows, pigs, chickens, sheep. At the bare minimum, we may want to have a couple spaces for some additional mobs, some passive mobs that we could potentially have the mana and artifice constructs farming. So let me go ahead and find a spot where we can get a good vantage point for that construction, and we'll go switch into a little slideshow of having that barn built. See you here back in just a little bit. And there we go. We have our barn completed. You can see that the barn is a little bit larger than our greenhouse. With actual two separate stories. Got our bottom floor here where we're going to place our animals. Upper floor, which theoretically could be used for storage. That spider has been wandering around lately. There we go. The abyssal spiders that keep popping up and teleporting around. Alright, so we've got it completed. Let's go ahead and grab our crystallized critters and see about placing them in our barn. Where did I put those little guys? those put in, we can still see about grabbing some other mobs and place in here. So this is a pig. There we go. Pig is in the pen. Chicken. Another chicken. A sheep. Another sheep. And there's our other pig. So we still do need to pick up some cows to fill out our standard normal Minecraft mobs. We do have a little bit of walk around, so we can set up our man and artifice constructs to do some harvesting and breeding of them. It's going to take us a little while to set up to do that. But now we have our greenhouse and our barn. That way we don't have to worry quite as much about our foodstuffs. You see quite a bit of the greenhouse is already grown up and matured. So we can start harvesting that shortly. And actually look into some of the additional recipes for cooking. But if we're going to start doing that, we're going to want to have a decent kitchen area as opposed to a single campfire. Let's see here. So we may have to expand out this so that it's a little bit more utilitarian. We're going to have to do that during our next episode. See you then. Thanks for coming.